Hey, can you find a water bottle for me?
Something so simple.
Hi, Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Tuesday, September 26th. Well, potentially good news to start with today for hundreds of thousands of people in Arkansas and millions of people nationwide. As I begin recording this, Republicans are saying in Congress that there will not be a vote on the Graham-Cassidy bill to repeal the Obamacare. That means for now the expanded Medicaid program and the support for people in the health insurance marketplaces will continue. At this point, there's no further word on what's to happen. The legislation as it was written would have reduced funding for Medicaid, which would have cut coverage to millions of people. It would have made conditions on coverage far more onerous. It would have been difficult, if not impossible, to get coverage for people who had been previously sick. It would have stopped, for, among other things, the ability to get birth control coverage from your health insurance. So this is good news. The president, Donald Trump, says he'll pivot now to tax, quote, reform, unquote. That means tax cuts primarily for the wealthy. We don't yet know the shape of it. A 20% top corporate tax rate is one of the goals. Certainly a cut at the top tax rate for the ultra wealthy is also in the cards. The president seems to be far more concerned with the NFL, it seems, by the number of his tweets, that he'd much rather go to war with black NFL players than do more important work, such as, for example, sending help to the incredible humanitarian disaster in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Congress is pressing the president to get something done. He says he may go to Puerto Rico next week finally. The former living presidents have banded together to get aid going to Puerto Rico. This is, many have said, Donald Trump's Katrina. The response on Puerto Rico has been far overwhelmed by his concern with NFL football players and whether they stand or sit during the playing of the national anthem. Speaking of the national anthem in the NFL, Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys, I think, deserves some credit. No, he did not order his team to behave properly at the anthem ceremony. He got together with his team. He clearly had some players that wanted to make a statement, so Jerry Jones joined them. He locked arms with his entire team before the playing of the national anthem last night. They took a knee. Then before the anthem began, stood together with arms locked while the anthem was played. They still were booed for this, which tells you that some fans understand that this really isn't about the flag or about the national anthem. It's about players' unhappiness about inequality in America, and some fans don't like hearing about that whatsoever. But I think Jerry Jones has perhaps found a third way. They need an exit strategy. The divisiveness of this debate doesn't need to carry on forever over the proper way to observe the national anthem. Maybe Jerry Jones has found a way. It was a rebuke of the president. Jerry Jones did say we do need to recognize that there's a need for equality in America, and boy, isn't that the truth. Speaking of equality in America, it continues to reverberate because of the observance this week of the 60th anniversary of the Little Rock school crisis. Diane Ravitch, who's a national education figure and an opponent of the charter school movement, has given national exposure to an article by UALR history professor Barclay Key, in which he says Little Rock hasn't made much progress in 60 years, that the white business establishment has conspired essentially to keep schools and neighborhoods segregated. And there's been a noted lack of progress in some school affairs, particularly the takeover of the school district by the state, something that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. It's good attention for Diane Ravitch, good attention for Barclay Key. He was featured in a film that's out now on Netflix about segregated schools in America, and he's going to be talking further about his thesis and coming lecture series at UALR. By the way, speaking of the school crisis, I noted that the Democrat Gazette this morning did extensive coverage of events yesterday, the big event at Central High School. They quoted 7 of the 8 members of Little Rock 9 who were on stage. They omitted one particular member, and that would be Thelma Mothershed Ware, who lives in Little Rock, who's a retired school teacher. She raised concerns about the proliferation of charter schools in Little Rock, something that the Democrat Gazette editorially has been a huge advocate of. It's a funny thing to leave out. We're happy to fill the gap on that. You can find it on the Arkansas blog. 2 Arkansas men were killed in a plane crash in Camden yesterday. They are both helicopter pilots certified for the National Guard, but they were not on military duty at the time in a private plane. We don't know yet what caused that crash. Yesterday late, City Attorney Tom Carpenter of Little Rock said that he thought the State Ethics Commission was wrong. He thought that city ordinance prevents candidates for mayor, such as Warwick Saban and Frank Scott, from forming exploratory committees to raise money for campaigns for mayor next year. He said a city ordinance doesn't allow you to raise money for that office until June, 5 months before the election. Funny thing, Tom Carpenter's opinion also makes it possible legally, in his view anyway, for Mayor Mark Stodel to keep and spend and use for his campaign money he raised as an unopposed candidate back 4 years ago. Doesn't seem quite fair, does it, that he could spend $78,000 he has lying around while opponents can't raise any money. Uncertain what's going to happen about this. I think probably the solution is to keep the 5-month fundraising limit, because that was something that a good government group proposed many years ago in Little Rock, but not let the mayor spend his holdover money. Make him give that money to a nonprofit like the ordinance intended for him to do. Well, new information in a study from the University of Wisconsin shows that indeed voter ID laws do work to suppress votes. They studied 2 counties in Wisconsin, heavily minority counties, and found that there were enough people who said they didn't vote because they were afraid they couldn't produce the proper ID, enough that perhaps if they'd all voted for Hillary Clinton, which most of them probably would have given the election in Wisconsin to Hillary Clinton and not to Donald Trump. Of course, Republicans, if they will be honest, and some have even admitted it candidly, that's what voter ID laws are about, suppressing minority voters. And finally, here's a note for people interested in the retail scene in Little Rock. Our news partner, KARK, FOI'd the email of the mayor and found he'd done some work trying to encourage Trader Joe's, the famous retail grocery chain, to locate a store in Little Rock. I can tell you I've learned that Trader Joe's isn't likely to come here. They're not going through with a planned expansion into Memphis, and they probably won't come here for the same reason. They don't have a distribution center close enough to service a new store, and that's very important in the grocery industry. However, keep your eyes on Costco. There's still some hope that that big warehouse wholesaler might finally landed a spot on University Avenue that used to be occupied by Sears. There's still a lot of dickering going on in that case, but something to watch for. We love Costco. They got a union workforce. How about that? And they don't support charter schools like the guys from Bentonville do. I'm resistant, as you can tell. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.